Hello, and welcome to the Living in Victory Everyday podcast. I'm your host, Eric Wiggins, and I'm here to fuel your passion as you pursue victory in every area of your life. This show is for people with dreams trying to reach their destiny and people with a vision who want to live in victory every day. I want to ask you a question today in today's episode. I want to ask you, if you had $10,000 in your hand today that you could do anything with, what would you do with it? Somebody may be thinking, if I had 10,000 extra dollars that I was free to do anything I could wanted to do with it, I would save some of that for retirement. And that would be a good choice. For somebody else, you might say, no, what I would do is I would take that $10,000 and I would invest it in a down payment on a new house or a new home. And that would be a great way to spend it as well. Somebody else would say, no, I've already got retirement. I'm already living in a nice home. What I want to do is take my dream vacation. So I would take that $10,000 and I would go cruising around the world, or I would go to my destination spot and hang out for a couple of weeks and have a great time. And that would be a great way to spend it as well. For somebody else, you would buy a gift for yourself or a gift for a friend or family member and spend it on other people to do something that you want to bless them. Whatever you decided you wanted to do with the $10,000, that's up to you. The question is, what would you do with it if you had it? And I want to show you by the end of this broadcast how you can have an additional $10,000 in your household usable income without going to get a bigger job, without getting a raise on your job or getting a bonus from your job, by simply employing a principle called addition by subtraction. Let's get into it. As we think about money and talk about money, many of you are tense and nervous, even listening to this podcast, going, man, I don't want to hear about money because it makes me nervous, it makes me anxious, it makes me tense. And I want you to be at peace when we talk about money. You know, when I go to the doctor for my yearly physical, my doctor, my physician, they poke on me and push me in certain areas on my body. They'll push my shoulder or my chest or my stomach or my back. And they poke and prod in these areas to see if I'm having pain in those areas where I should not be having pain. And if when they poke me in an area and I say it hurts and it shouldn't hurt, that's a sign that there's something out of order. There's something not right. There's something wrong with that area. And then what they'll do is they'll prescribe some physical therapy or a prescription or maybe even a procedure to remove the pain and to remove what is causing the discomfort, because I should not be having pain in that area. If when you heard the words finances and money in this podcast, it caused you some mental anguish or you got nervous or you got tense, you shouldn't have pain in your financial conversations. You shouldn't have pain when finance comes up. That's a sign that there may be something wrong and you need to get some therapy, or you need to get some procedures done, or you need to create some surgical things in your financial ways of thinking that remove what's causing the pain so that you can have peace and freedom in that area. And that's what I want to do today. I want to examine our attitudes that may be causing us some tension or some stress or some anxiety. And then I want to help you to apply a principle called addition by subtraction that can add income into your household by the end of this year. You know, I'm in my 50s now, and as I look back over my life and I examine where I've been and where I am as it relates to money and finances and my attitude toward it, I've had the whole gamut of experiences financially, from not having enough to having just enough to having more than enough. And I can tell you that there's an attitude that can come with no matter what stage you're in, where you're content with where you are. Not that you want to stay stuck there, but you have a peace about it, knowing that if you stay in the process and you keep applying the right principles, you can grow yourself to the place of having all your needs met and then having a surplus so that you can meet the needs of other people. So I want to suggest to us that there may be 4 or 5 different attitudes that you may be experiencing at any given time as it relates to your finances. Number one, somebody may be feeling like, I'm just simply trying to survive. Amen. I've been there. A person who is in that state or a person who is in that stage or mindset just feels an hopelessness about their finances. They're just worried about meeting basic needs, that it's just about surviving. Have you been there? I know I've been there when I didn't have any money in my account, but I still needed to get something to eat. That is just a basic need to survive financially. But then somebody may have been in that stage, but graduated from just surviving. But the next stage is struggling. That's a person, when we're in that state, we feel trapped or anxious about our finances. Yes, I got my head above water, but I still feel a lot of financial pressure. I'm literally living paycheck to paycheck. I got paid last week and I made it, but I'm hoping I can survive until the next paycheck comes. And when you're in that struggling phase, it just seems like even as you go from paycheck to paycheck, you just keep digging a deeper and deeper financial hole in terms of the debt and the problems that you're in. And so if you're there, I can identify with that. I've had seasons where I felt like I'm not at the point where I'm not going to survive, but I'm definitely struggling in this area of finances. But then the next stage is I'm not just surviving, I'm not struggling, but I find myself in a stable place financially. A person who's feeling like their finances are stable, they feel calm and they're yet still hoping for more. That I'm at peace with where I am, but I'm not necessarily satisfied with where I am. I know that I can do better and I can have more. And they plan to do just that. They're making ends meet, but their future still looks bright. And then the next stage is not just surviving and not just struggling and being stable, but the next stage is someone who has an attitude of feeling secure about their finances. This is a person who feels like they have enough, but they don't necessarily have enough beyond just meeting their needs or their family's needs. They don't have enough to go out and meet other people's needs. And this is a mindset that as the income grows, lifestyle expenses grow. That as they get a raise on their job or more money comes in, as more money comes in, then guess what? More money goes out. They're caught in this vicious cycle of feeling some level of security, but as their income increases, their lifestyle increases. And then there's another mindset beyond being secure, and that's feeling like you're in a place of surplus. And when a person has an attitude of feeling like they're in a place of surplus, they believe they have more than enough to meet their own needs. And they have a high level of contentment. And this is a person who purchases match their needs, not necessarily their income. In other words, they are living beneath their means, meaning they could buy more stuff if they wanted to, but they've limited themselves based on what they need and some of what they want so that they can live beneath their means. And typically, these are people who are very generous. They give more than 10% of their earnings away to other people to support other people who may not be in the same position that they're in. And again, I have experienced all of these various attitudes and stages financially. And no matter where you are on the scale, you have an opportunity to go to the next level. You have an opportunity to move from one level to the next level. I want to share something with you from an author who wrote a book. His name is Brad Hewitt. He's the author of a book called Your New Money Mindset. And here's what Brad Hewitt said about how we think about our financial position. He said, wise planning eases some of the tension people feel about money. So if I'm talking to you and you feel some tension about money, you feel some anxiety about where you are, you may be surviving, just surviving, or struggling, or stable, or secure, or trying to get to the place where you're in surplus. Brad Hewitt suggests that the way to get over those anxious thoughts, the way to get over those nervous tendencies is through wise planning. Putting a plan in place to deal with your financial situation and move you to the next level is the best way to ease the tension. Because without a plan, you just fret and worry about where you are and you stay stuck in the cycle. And as we think about where we are in our planning, one of the scriptures that comes to my mind is Proverbs chapter 27 and verse 23 through 24. Proverbs 27, 23, and 24 says, "Be diligent to know the state of your flocks and attend to your herds. For riches are not forever, nor does a crown endure to all generations." Think about that. When a shepherd is tending to his flocks and his herds, what he's doing is he's taking an account of where things are. He knows how many sheep and or goats that he has. He knows how much acreage he is leading his sheep and goats in. He knows the resources that are on the land. He's taking an account. He's taking stock. He's taking measurement in what is under his management, what is under his control. So it is with a shepherd. So it is with you and I as it relates to our resources. Every now and then and periodically, we need to take stock of what we have. We need to see what it is that's in our home, what it is that's in our budget, what it is that's in our account. Not so that we can become anxious about it, but so that we can put a plan in place to manage it so that we can live in financial peace and financial freedom. You know, there's a term that some in the financial world call stuffification. It's a takeoff of the word suffocation. And it's the idea that we can be drowning in having too much stuff. And I know you may be saying, but Pastor, I'm in this stage where I'm struggling. I'm just barely surviving. But James Waldman says that most homes have over 2,200 public items. Most homes have over 2,000 public items. A public item is if I walked into your home right now today, I would see 2,000 things just out for public view or public consumption. This is not talking about the stuff that we put under our mattress or put under our bed or put in a safe place. These are just things that are open for people to walk in and see. He said if we walked in the average home, we would see some 40 pairs of shoes, that we would see somewhere between 90 and 100 DVDs or videos. We would see over 150 toys. We would see some 450 books and magazines. And there would be over 50 clothing items, of which 20 items have never been worn in 1 year. In other words, we have a lot of stuff in our possession that either we don't need or don't use anymore. And it amounts to things we have wasted our spending on. Let me give you some numbers in the United States alone about this concept of wasted spending. There's over $1,000 spent annually per person on coffee. Just coffee alone, people spend over $1,000 in the United States in a year. Over $65 billion, that's billions with a B, are spent on lottery tickets in the United States. The average American loses $400 a year in gambling. There's over $7 billion that are spent on automatic teller machine fees. Over $3 billion is spent on Halloween candy alone. Not talking about costumes, not talking about anything else. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Halloween candy, but just giving you some numbers. $3 billion is spent on Halloween candy. Over $100 billion in 1 year is spent on fast food. And $900 billion are spent on credit card debt. These are items that would fall in a category of spending that we don't necessarily have to do. That you and I have some control over all of these areas by our attitudes and our activities within our own control as it relates to our money and our finances. And so I want to challenge you today to think about what is your attitude toward your own personal financial situation. And if you were to put a wise plan in place, Could you imagine how much more peace and serenity you would have as it relates to your finances just by putting a plan in place to address some of this wasted spending that may be in our homes? And then I want to give you 10 practical tips that you could employ right now, starting today, that if you started these today, a year from today, you could have some $10,000 to $12,000 in your household usable income. That's real money that you can use to do with it whatever you wanted to do. This is without you getting a raise on your job, without receiving a bonus on your job, without getting a second job, or even starting a new business. So let's examine a couple of ways, 10 ways, in fact, that by the principle of addition by subtraction, you could add tens of thousands of dollars to your household income in just a few short months. Here they are. Are you ready? You got a pen and pencil? Write these down. Here it is. Number one, gym membership. That's right, gym membership. The average person spends about $400 a year on gym memberships. And many times, people don't even go to the gym on a regular basis. But even if you did go to a gym on a regular basis, there's some more inexpensive ways to stay in shape. And we should certainly spend time staying in shape, keeping our bodies in shape. It helps us to stay sharp, not only physically, but it helps us to stay sharp mentally. But with the advent of social media platforms and workout applications on our devices, you can download YouTube videos or social media workout plans and work out to those. There are DVDs and CDs that you can purchase and do with a group or do at home by yourself in the privacy of your home. You can run outside. You can do certain things. You can join certain classes and still stay in shape, but save some $400 to $500 a year through gym memberships that you might not even be using right now. Number two, dining out. There's data that suggests that a family of four, on average, will spend between $75 to $125 a week on eating out. And if you eliminate just one trip a month for eating out, a person could save between $900 and $1,500 a year. My family is a family of six, and when we eat out, it's way more than $125. So again, just taking out one time a month can save you between $1,000 and $1,500 a year. Drinking alcohol. Now, there's nothing wrong with drinking in moderation, in my opinion, but if a person is drinking alcohol, if you cut out $50 a week per person in your family, you could save some $2,500 to $5,000 of just expenses with drinking alcohol if you just moderated how much you drink. Somebody else says, well, Pastor, I don't drink alcohol. Okay, great for you. How about water? We all drink water. Number four, if you use refillable water bottles versus drinking water from a bottle, you could save some $300 a year. If you assume a bottle of water costs about $1 per bottle, you could save almost $300 to $400 a year by getting a refillable water bottle, and studies show you'll drink more water that way. Number five, canceling unread magazine and newspaper subscriptions. The average household has about $200 of subscriptions to magazines and newspapers. And with the advent of news coming to us via so many different ways now on our phones and on our tablets, and much of it is free and much of it is repeated if it's not free, we could save those subscription costs and just review the news on our tablets or on our phones. And that could save some $200 a year. Number six, morning coffee. Now, I know I'm going to get in trouble with some people here and saying, you messing with my morning coffee. No, I'm not saying you can't drink coffee at all. But think about this. If you brew at home versus buying out, you could save almost $1,000 in a year. That's right. Think about somebody who spends $20 a week on coffee. And let's say that you cut out $4 a day then what you could do is save about $1,000 for the year in your coffee consumption. Doesn't mean you don't drink the coffee. Just means maybe you bring or you brew it at home or you cut down on the amount of money you're spending out drinking the coffee. Number 7, take care of your lawn yourself and enjoy being outside. Assume cutting your grass for 6 to 9 months, depending on where you live, at $50 a week. That leads to about a $1,300 or $1,800 a year saving just by taking care of your lawn yourself and being outside and spending some time outside in the nature. You may say, well, Pastor, I don't want to do that. I don't want to cut it that often. Well, you could cut it a little more than you do now and save a little bit of that money for yourself. Number 8, you could stay within your budget and avoid overdraft fees. The average household or the average person spends $250 a year on overdraft fees just by simply not paying attention to where their budget is and spending more than they have in their account. That's a savings, again, of $250 a year. Car washes. If you did it yourself, you could save about $350 a year. If you assume someone spends about $15 a wash, and you assume you wash your car, say, twice a month, maybe more in the wintertime or summertime or less in the winter or summer, depending on where you live, on average, if you did it yourself, you could save somewhere between $250 and $300 a year. And then last but not least, interest on debt from credit cards. If you got out of debt, and you got out of debt as fast as you could, and you didn't spend money on your credit cards and didn't have to pay the interest payment alone, you could save anywhere between $500 and $1,000 or more in any given year. So if you add all of that up, gym memberships, eating out, reducing the amount of alcohol, using a refillable water bottle, canceling newspaper and magazine prescriptions, cutting back on purchasing coffee out and doing it yourself, or cutting back on your coffee consumption, taking care of your lawn, staying within your budget, washing your own car, and certainly getting out of debt and avoiding interest payments on your debt, that could total up between $8,000 and $12,000 over the next 12 months, just by using the principle of addition by subtraction. And these are just some thought starters. There may be some other areas in your budget, other areas in your home that you can think of that I sparked as I was talking through these. Maybe some of these weren't relevant to you, but maybe there's some others that I didn't mention that are. The point is, pay attention to your flocks and herds. Pay attention to where your budget is. Pay attention to where your money is going. And then assess your attitude toward the things that you're purchasing in your budget. Do you really need them? Do you need them in the amount that you're spending now? Or are these just things that you want? Or these things that you haven't really tracked and noticed how much you've been spending on them in the past? Take a stock of what you have, assess your attitude, and then think about some new activities that you can put in place that help you to add by subtracting some of the stuff that we spend our money on. Listen, I hope this was helpful to you. I love you. I'll be back next week with the next installment of our Living in Victory Everyday podcast. If you want to go back and get some of our other episodes, we just finished our Fresh Start series. I think that was 6 weeks of the Fresh Start series. You can get those on our YouTube channel and go back and re-listen to those. We'll be back again next week with our next installment of the Living in Victory podcast. Be victorious. God bless.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Living in Victory Everyday podcast with your host, Pastor Eric Wiggins. Please follow us on all social media platforms and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, New Horizons Church Indy.